Hello and warm welcome to today's episode. And today I want to talk about Writeback functionality in Power BI, or the official name translytical task flows. You might have heard about this feature already. It basically allows you to trigger actions, specifically also Writeback actions, via Power BI. So within your Power BI report, you will be able to push a button and actually triggering some kind of logic in the background, eventually even writing back data to the same source you're actually using in the report. So allowing things like having some kind of application logic built on top of Power BI, or like a comment function or other things like that. What I get commonly asked is that while in the documentation it says it supports like Writeback to SQL database to the Fabric warehouse, but what if you use like Snowflake, or if you're using the Fabric Lakehouse or Databricks, can you also write back to those sources as well? And the answer is yes, of course it is. With user data functions in the background, you are super flexible what you can do, and that's what I'm going to show you. So let's have a quick look at the documentation of translytical task flows. So translytical task flows basically means, you have the functionality within a Power BI report to trigger so-called user data functions in Fabric. And that opens, up to use all kinds of scenarios. Yeah, adding data, editing data, deleting data, or even like calling all kinds of APIs. And even more, you can run any kind of code within these user data functions. So actually it looks like this, that you have some kind of report. You might have some kind of filters here, selecting specific fields, or even enter some free text here. Then you push a button and it's actually doing some action in the background. So for example, in a very simplistic view, they are adding a new line, adding a comment in this comments table here. And it's set up in the way that you can, use a button and actually define some actions there. So if you use like a button, you have the ability here to add an action, and typically this could be used to have navigate back or to link to a specific bookmark and so on. But actually what is pretty new here, you can say this button on, when you click it, it should trigger a data function. And this data function actually references to a specific workspace, a function set, and a specific function in this function set, and then it can hand over values here. And values could be like specific selections here, specific outcomes of formulas, but also like, for example, this free text field over here, and using this value. What is happening in the background is actually that it triggers a so-called user data function. So within Fabric, this is what a user data function looks like. If you start from fresh, just go into your workspace and create a so-called user data function. So when you're creating this, just give it a nice name and click on create. So you end up with this kind of view here. You click on new function. So you basically have now this function set, or a user data function workload item, and now you can create specific functions here. So each kind of new definition here with this kind of specifier here, it basically allows you to have multiple functions over here. You have some kind of common things which are basically initiated or run once via initialization. So like imports, or if you have some global variables and so on. And then these are kind of the functions here which can take specific parameters, and then you just run this Python code over here. You can add like connections to specific items, and this is kind of already a limitation. You can have a connection to SQL databases, to lakehouses, to warehouses, but not like, but these are kind of some default connections. So no Snowflake, no Databricks whatsoever. But this shouldn't be a problem. What you can also do is like extending that with all kinds of libraries. Yeah. So if you want to use additional libraries like SDKs or connection libraries from PyPy, feel free to do that. You can even upload your own kind of libraries in the wheel format. Use that code directly over here. So you're super flexible there. And what I use that, or what I want to demonstrate, is that you can use that also for scenarios like Writeback to Lakehouse tables, Writeback to Snowflake, Writeback to Databricks. So the first scenario I want to show is like, how can you write back to Lakehouse tables? I mean, this is not like a default scenario. So because the default scenarios here include writing back to Fabric SQL databases, Fabric warehouses, and Fabric Lakehouses, but only for the files. So basically downloading and uploading files from the files section of a Lakehouse. For these, they are all pretty cool examples. Just copy and paste and adjust the code from these samples. But what about Lakehouse tables? That get a little bit tricky because you can't just use like the SQL Server connection and run some insert statements. It's not supported for Lakehouse tables. What I'm using there is actually a quite popular library nowadays, which is called Polars, and it basically allows me to interact with those data tables. Yeah, so the syntax is somehow kind of a mix between like pandas and Spark, but it basically allows me to do these transformations on data tables on this user in the scope of this user data function quite efficiently. What I need is I need to connect to this Lakehouse table. So basically I'm connecting to the table section of this Lakehouse. For that I need like the one lake path to these files. So this the syntax of this path always looks like this. So here you have actually the workspace ID and here the Lakehouse ID, and then you're referencing the table section. And then I can say in this table section, I actually want to reference this specific table here, comments, and you're just pointing to that. To authorize the connection, you actually have to do two things. One is you need some kind of, user or some kind of, connection details. Here I use a service principal. So I'm initiating that's via the Azure Identity Library, having like this client secret credential, that's a service principal. And then I'm just fetching the token over here. And this is enough that I can put this in the options of the Polars library. And then I'm just being able to create like a new so-called Polars data frame over here, and just use this data frame to append like new rows to the existing data table. So this is actually what is happening here. So what is kind of a parameter here is that the comment field, and this is just handed over and filled in dynamically into this new table, and then it's getting appended to this data table. So you might be wondering, how do I get like this connection string over here? That's pretty easy. Just go to your Lakehouse you want to connect to. And if you have this open here, then in the URL, you see like groups / and this is what is following is the workspace ID. Then you have Lakehouse / and then you see like the Lakehouse ID. And this is all you need to build this connection string over here. And this is what is will be able to act with those delta tables. So let's see this in action. And going over to my Power BI report now, it's very simplistic. And this button is set up to actually call exactly this data function in this function set in this workspace. And now I can just add a new comment over here. I mean, you can have multiple parameters, but I make this as simple as possible, and then I can submit this. So eventually this is direct query mode. It will see that there have been some changes and will actually fetch those changes and doing a refresh on the data. I also get a response back that the request was successful and the function was triggered successful. And you see over here, hi YouTube, that's exactly the value which was just created now. Yeah, so 12:52, 2:53. Yeah, so I mean, that's the UTC timestamp and it's 2 hours behind my time. So this is all fine. This is the value which was just created. I mean, I can check this also directly in the Lakehouse. So moving over here, I see the SQL Analytics endpoint of this Lakehouse. If I run a new SQL query, I see hi YouTube. That's exactly the row which was added here. So it was added in the Lakehouse and via direct query mode. I actually can see this directly in the report. Again, how does this work now for Snowflake, for Databricks? So for Snowflake, it's even a little bit easier because there we can make use of the so-called Snowflake connector Python library. So just install the library for that. I mean, in total, I need like Delta Lake and Polars to connect to the Delta tables in one lake for the Lakehouse tables. For Snowflake, I use the Snowflake connector Python library. For Databricks, I actually just call the REST API. So I just use the request library and Azure Identity for the authentication to, get tokens via the service principal. So for Snowflake, it's even easier. I'm doing the authentication here with the username and password. I mean, the library also offers other possibilities to authenticate, so feel free to build the connection in another way. And I'm basically just running an insert statement against this Snowflake table over here, also adding like dynamic content like the comment, which is the parameter here of this user data function, and the timestamp, which is computed at runtime. And then I'm just running this query here using like the Snowflake connector. Let's see this in action. I have a report which looks pretty similar. Let's say I want to run here hi YouTube again, and I can submit this now. Submitting this will also kind of refresh the visuals here. So and I see actually that I get like that this was submitted successfully. I also get like the return value actually of this user data function displayed here. And I see hi YouTube. So this is exactly what I just have, written back to my Snowflake page. Yeah. So if you want to check this here in Snowflake, this is kind of my instance over here. So I'm seeing this table over here, just running a new select statement. And now instead of 5 values, I have 6 values. And the latest one is hi YouTube, which was exactly run, a minute ago. And the last but not least, Databricks. Can I write back to Databricks? Of course you can. For that, I'm actually using like the REST API for running SQL statements against your Databricks instance. So I'm actually connecting there. I need like the Databricks instance, and I'm authenticating via my Databricks personal access token. And then I'm just defining, similar to Snowflake, I'm just defining here my insert statements, also with dynamic values, calling this API, and this will run the insert statements on my Databricks instance, and adding this value. I also have like a report here which uses direct query against my Databricks instance, and it works actually exactly the same way here. So I'm having the same kind of setup here, running the submit button and triggering this user data function. And now we see the data has been refreshed. Hi YouTube Databricks. That's exactly like what I just sent. If I want to check this now here in Databricks, running like the select star over here, we see exactly high YouTube Databricks. That's exactly the value which has been added there. So it's all kind of the same idea, triggering these user data functions, and you can use those user data functions for all kinds of scenarios, like using the connectors there, which those tools provide to actually connect, and also using them for a write-back scenario. What you might have seen is how I handle that I don't have to hard code the credentials there. So this is kind of the limitation. So because there are no kind of out of the box connection, which kind of abstract the connections, strings and passwords and so on, tokens away from you directly, only for like the native targets for these connections, you basically have to define this directly in the code. So one option is directly hard coding, for example, like credentials of the client secret of your Snowflake user or your personal access token in an instance. Or what I'm doing is I'm basically putting a secrets JSON on a lakehouse, and then I'm using the built-in connection to the lakehouse files to actually download this information at a runtime. So this allows me to not put the secrets directly in the codes, but basically put it into a specific location in the file section of my lakehouse, using OneLake security to make sure that only the right people have access to that, and keeping that secret a secret. I mean, it's not as perfect as a key vault, but we don't have this integration yet. So this is the best I came up with to store the credentials for now. So this is it. That's what I wanted to show you, how to write back in other data stores than the default ones, which are supported out of the box, and also show you the flexibility of user data functions. From my perspective, were really cool addition to the Fabric stack, which allows you to do a lot of cool stuff. Also, this integration now with Power BI, so really making it possible to actually build some kind of analytics or translytical applications directly in Power BI, triggering all kinds of background activities via interaction with the report. So this is from really a rich experience. If you want to see more content like this, write me a message, put it in the comments what is interesting for you. I will share the code on my GitHub repo page. I will paste the link into the description of this video. If you like this video or the other videos, please subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and see you then. Bye.